Super Mario RPG reviews have started to flood the interwebs, and we are going to go over the review roundup right here from Metacritic. Now, Super Mario RPG was a classic RPG from the Super Nintendo era that I played like crazy back in the day. I liked it for its great writing, in addition to its fun combat and really funny scenarios that happened in the game. It was just a masterpiece from the Super Nintendo, and they brought the game back. They've got a whole new HD overhaul. You've got improved audio quality and new features and quality of life stuff. So they've done a ton of things to make the game better. So how exactly did it do? Well, let's go ahead and break it down right here. But before we do, what's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to the video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get all the latest Nintendo Switch RPG news and more on the channel. Now let's go ahead and jump into these reviews. So far there are 44 reviews, and the game has a really good 84 average at this point. It's right around where I thought it would be, mid 80s, and that's where it's at. So with 44 reviews, 41 of them are positive, that's 75 and up, and there's 3 that are mixed. So that's anywhere between, I think, like a 6 to like a 74. So nothing negative, all pretty much positive or slightly mixed, or 7 out of 10, it seems. But we're gonna get to all of that. Now let's go ahead and jump into the only 10 out of 10 score that is from Player 2, and they said this: Super Mario RPG is a delightful remake of an underappreciated classic that will thrill new and old fans alike. It's filled with wonder, whimsy, and wit, and respects its origins while easily carving a new place in Nintendo's current lineup. All right, next up is from Nintendoros with a 9.5 out of 10, and they said Super Mario RPG gets on Nintendo Switch an extremely faithful remake that gives new life to a legendary game that now new generations will be able to enjoy with new HD visuals, an impressive soundtrack, a few improvements, and a nostalgic touch hard to forget. All right, next up is another 9 out of 10 from COG Magazine, and they said Super Mario RPG is as good today as it was 27 years ago, and this remake simply brings it into the modern day. All right, next up is from COG Connected. They gave it a 9 out of 10 and said Super Mario RPG is so faithful to the original that calling it a remake feels disingenuous. The game is more of a top to bottom remaster. Every scrap of it has been rebuilt, polished, and reborn for the modern era. Sounds like they remade it then. The visuals, the music, and the controls all feel crisp and clean. The writing holds up quite well, and there are a few pleasant surprises for fans of the original release. Since I'm so familiar with the game, I wish there was more new content, but I'm at peace with this. It's better that the game be preserved for a new audience, but whether this is your first time playing or your 15th, you're gonna love Super Mario RPG for the Nintendo Switch. It's always funny to hear what people think is remaster and remake in terms of things, because some people feel that anytime that you completely remake the game with brand new graphics, brand new engine, obviously that is a remake. But then some people feel, well, no, you can completely remake it and everything can be completely new, but it's not necessarily a remake, it's a remaster. So it's so interesting. I've delved down that path. We're not going to do that here. That's for like a live stream or something like that. All right, next up is from Digitally Downloaded with a 9 out of 10, and they said we could argue back and forth about whether Nintendo should have simply released the original Super Mario RPG on the Super Nintendo app that online subscribers already have access to. The visual update is delightful, but outside of that, Nintendo has changed so little that you could play the two games side by side and barely notice the difference in the experience. And yet it's also one of the all-time great games from the SNES era, and so whimsical and playful that ultimately Super Mario RPG is a worthwhile for no other reason than its excuse to play it again. So very interesting. I think they just talk about the experience itself, because you'll definitely notice the difference in visuals, the level up screen, and various other things here and there. So interesting. Next up is from God is a Geek with a 9 out of 10 and says, you've got to handle a beloved game remake with kid gloves, and that's exactly what Nintendo has done with Super Mario RPG. RPG, this is a careful remake, adding goodies like a monster list or the option to play with the original music. Rather than taking anything away, if nothing else, it's a remarkable testimony to the ability of the designers from 1996 to make a game this good that still feels as brilliant today and bodes incredibly well for the 2024 re-release of Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. All right, next up is another 9 out of 10 from Gaming Bible, and they said Super Mario RPG is the perfect remake of one of Nintendo's very finest games, and I'm so very glad it's about to find a whole new audience. This is an adventure that's fizzing with innovation, unforgettable characters, and sharp writing. One final joyous surprise for Switch owners in 2023. All right, another 9 out of 10 from PlayerEssence, and they said Super Mario RPG was an excellent game at the time and nothing has changed. Even now, it is a delightful title to play and even more enjoyable thanks to the audio-visual improvements. In terms of remake, when it comes to new features, the title plays it a bit on the safe side, but in return is a wonderful adventure that won't bore you for a second. All right, next up is from Nintendo Life, a 9 out of 10, and they said Super Mario RPG is here in all of its weird, wonderful glory for a new generation to experience and sets a new standard for how to do a faithful remake right, delivering a beautifully preserved, pure experience for fans of the original and an accessible entry point for genre newcomers. The game's infectious charm, writing, and polished gameplay do so much to elevate this beyond what might have been merely a simple RPG starring Mario. Very good on that one. Next up is a 9 out of 10 from Silicon Era. Super Mario RPG breathes new life into the Super Nintendo classic, allowing players to re-experience one of Mario's most unique and adventurous titles on the Switch. All right, next up, another 9 out of 10 from Terra Gamer. Playing Super Mario RPG is a clear example of wanting to return to the places or moments where you were happy. The dream fans idolize so much in their minds is finally a reality, which turns out to be very pleasant. The music is remarkable. The game mechanics do not require significant adjustments, and the overall experience fulfills its purpose. Sure, perhaps it is a game that is too simple for this gaming generation, but at the time, it was a gateway for many people to a genre that millions enjoy today. Yeah, so absolutely, this is something that I've said quite a bit, that it's very simplistic in terms of its approach, but at the same time, it's still very fun. Cool for newcomers, but also cool for people who just want to have a nice, enjoyable Mario RPG experience. They did add some depth as well, like with the triple team attacks and some of the other stuff, so it was cool that they actually even added a little bit more for the depth of the battle system. All right, next up is from WCCF Tech with a 9 out of 10, and they said Super Mario RPG is a lovingly crafted remake that retains the original's peculiar off-brand charm, appealing combat, and varied level design, while subtly tinkering with numerous elements to make the game more palatable for modern players. The game can still be a bit too old school for its own good at times, but any twinges of frustration pass quickly amid a steady stream of smile-inducing set pieces. Whether you're new to Super Mario RPG or still own your original SNES cart, this experience will level up your Switch's library. All right, next up is from My Nintendo News with a 9 out of 10, and they said Super Mario RPG is a superb remake that perfectly captures the essence of the Super NES original. This is not always to its credit, as elements of its platforming in particular have not aged as well as they could have, and the ability to block enemy attacks with action commands serves to make the times you can't feel far more punishing. However, these are minor frustrations that do not tarnish the overall experience in any significant or lasting fashion. Its beautifully remastered visuals and soundtrack, witty dialogue, and engaging combat make Super Mario RPG a modern classic that is more than worth your time. All right, next up is from Destructoid, and this will be the last 9 out of 10. Super Mario RPG is an all-time classic game that both RPG lovers and Mario fans alike owe it to themselves to play. The Switch remake brilliantly preserves the spirit of the original SNES game with some great quality of life enhancements and phenomenally redone soundtrack. Longtime fans looking for a more transformative remake may feel disappointed, but when the core game itself has aged this well, it doesn't suffer in the ways a lesser title would. If you've never played Super Mario RPG, or if you simply want an excuse to revisit it, this remake is for you. All right, so those are the 9s out of 10, guys. There were multiple 9s out of 10. Let's go ahead and get into the 8 out of 10 scores. First up is from Game Informer. They gave it an 8.8 out of 10 and said much of what has changed about Super Mario RPG for the remake beyond the visuals is behind the scenes. The pace is brisker, and in my hour count, even after beating the big optional boss, came in lower than the average playtime of the original. The game has been tweaked only slightly to add some new mechanics and make the adventure even more welcoming than it already was. The result is an experience that only shows its age slightly and rewards longtime fans and newcomers alike. All right, next up is from GamePro Germany with an 8.5. Super Mario RPG is a loving and timeless new addition for the Nintendo Switch, one that shows what a hit we had to do without in Europe in 1996. So yeah, I think Europe did not get an official release for the game back then on the Super Nintendo. Wild. All right, next up is Vandal with the 8.5 out of 10 and said, we've been pleasantly surprised with how well this game has aged. Yes, it's short and simple, but it's also very charming, well designed, and really well paced, leaving us with a smile when the credits roll. Games.ch, they gave it an 8.2 out of 10. In some ways, the developers could have been more courageous concerning innovations because besides graphics and new arranged score, there's not much really new stuff, but playing it safe is fine because with that, Super Mario RPG is a beautiful looking role-playing game with a great mixture of round-based combat and action elements. 8 out of 10 from Checkpoint Gaming, maintaining what made the original so special. Super Mario RPG provides a glow up to an absolute classic RPG experience with smart tweaks to combat, bringing it firmly into the modern era. It's an utterly charming experience that sucks you into its gorgeous, colorful world. Still, in sticking firmly to its roots, it just doesn't provide the challenge or open world gameplay to elevate it to the next level. If you're keen on a breezy, nostalgic RPG with simple yet satisfying combat, the iconic Italian in a red hat has you covered. Dexterdo with an 8 out of 10, and they said a new lick of paint with some enhanced accessibility improvements brings Super Mario RPG Remake into the 21st century. While the game was already a great outing back in 1996, new players should have no problem jumping into Mario's first RPG title, hopefully opening the door for next year's Paper Mario's remake and potentially more RPGs later down the line. All right, another 8 out of 10 from comicbook.com saying Super Mario RPG has aged fantastically well. With great gameplay, a terrific story, and some excellent characterization, the developers have added just enough quality of life improvements to refine the experience while still maintaining the elements that made it a classic in the first place. For those who have never played it before, Super Mario RPG is a very easy recommendation, but for those who have played through it a number of times over the last 27 years, might find that there isn't enough new content to rationalize the $60. Very good point. Games have an 8 out of 10. While dated design means other parts of the tale don't hold up quite as well as its biting comedy, Super Mario RPG remains a strong adventure with challenging combat and plenty of unique quirks. By maintaining its spirit beneath a fresh lick of paint, Nintendo has created a welcome opportunity to experience or re-experience one of the most important games in Super Mario history. VGC with an 8 out of 10. Switch's Mario RPG feel like a love letter to the original game. Fans of the 1996 version will be delighted by the care that's gone into recreating the Super Nintendo title scene for scene. For everyone else, this remains a charming RPG adventure well worth discovering. IGN, they gave it an 8 out of 10. Super Mario RPG is considered a classic for a reason, and this wonderfully faithful remake makes it easy for anyone who missed it in the Super Nintendo era to see why. It's unabashedly odd, reveling in the unexpected, with writing that consistently had me busting out laughing at jokes I'd heard a dozen of times before. Its turn-based combat is fairly simple outside of its very clever boss fights, but it's also ultra satisfying to keep your timing string going even when you're plowing through pushovers. And while the updated graphics are equal parts pretty and sort of unambitious, when it comes to interpreting the original style with some unfortunate menu lag, the new take on its excellent music are truly exceptional. Super Mario RPG already held up pretty well if you didn't mind a bit of dust on its different systems, but now there's no excuse not to see why Mario's most unexpected adventure is still so beloved. All right, good roundup from IGN there. MGG 8 out of 10. Super Mario RPG is one of the strangest Mario games in history, with its world of characters seemingly drawn from an entirely different universe. Its darker than usual graphic style and its turn-based gameplay, the late Squaresoft game is one of the Super Famicom's diamonds in the rough that had never before made it out the old continent with a proper localization, a mistake that has now been rectified with a meticulous translation, a graphical overhaul that does justice to the 1996 game, and gameplay adjustments that allow younger players to enjoy it. Let's go ahead and go to the 6th axis with an 8 out of 10, and they said, there's a lot to love in Super Mario RPG Remake, an adorable art style, deceptively deep combat, an excellent updated soundtrack, and genuinely funny skits and writing all make this game as much of a joy to play as the Super NES original. If you can look past the simplicity of the game overall and the occasionally frustrating experience that is the jumping puzzles, this is a stellar addition to the Switch's already stacked library. Last 8 out of 10 score, Games Radar Plus. Super Mario RPG is legendary for a reason, and that's never been clearer with this remake. It looks great and smartly evolves the original combat system to make it even more engaging. While the game can't fully escape the limitations of the 90s JRPG storytelling, it still offers a zany quest well worth undertaking today. I like that. Give me some more of that when it comes to the limitations of the 90s JRPG storytelling. All right, let's go ahead and move into the final portion here, guys. The mixed reviews, and pretty much all 7 out of 10, so not too bad overall. There's 3 of them. Digital Trend starts out 7 out of 10 and says, I hesitate to call Super Mario RPG an improvement over the 1996 version. It's still the same whimsical adventure that I'll never tire of playing, but it loses a bit of what made the original special amid a stack of tweaks that go both too far and not far enough. I imagine that a lot of players will stick to the original on future replays, opting to soak in its dense pixels and dark landscapes. I don't know about that. I don't know about that based off of what I've read so far and what I've seen with the preview. Inverse with a 7 out of 10 and says, Nintendo's newly released remake is more of a one-to-one remaster than a true remake. There's nothing inherently wrong with this new version of Super Mario RPG, but some of the game's design flaws and problems are more apparent. While the brilliance of the original still shines through, I continuously found myself wishing more was changed and reimagined. And last but definitely not least, Metro Game Central, 7 out of 10, an excellent remake of a historically important game that often gets forgotten. The price is off-putting, but beyond that, this is a breezy and charming adventure that's perfect for RPG neophytes. All right, so that is all of the scores here, guys. We have went through them. Pretty much the consensus when it comes down to it is Super Mario RPG is just as good as it's ever been on the Nintendo Switch. It's just as good, but then it also has a host of extra things that kind of go above and beyond a little bit. Obviously, the updated visuals are awesome. The music is fantastic. Some of the quality of life features is really good. Some of the extra battle things are really good in the game. So all of that are the positives. The game is still super funny. It's still super fun to play through. There's all sorts of really cool things in the game, and it nails that with its presentation and everything that Nintendo and Square Enix has done to bring this back into the new age. However, some of the bad things is that some of those frustrating things from the 90s, some of those things that were not quite so good with some of the platforming sections and falling and things like that are still present here. So that hasn't been updated, at least not well enough. In addition to, if you're someone who's already played through the game a million times, since it is a one-to-one remake with not a ton of new story-based content or new content in there, pretty much none of that, then you might not want to play through it again if you've already played through it a bunch of times. Now, I disagree with saying that people are just going to stick to the original because of the pixels when you can just play the original. If you want to play something new, you're probably going to want to play something new because they haven't remastered it at all. Now, there are some people who feel that it's more of a remaster since they didn't change the story stuff type of content and aren't looking at it from a fundamental level of the game being completely remade. It's not remastering the same base game that you had. You actually are making a new game ground up, but at the same time, I understand what people are saying there. So it's very interesting. So what do you guys think overall with Super Mario RPG and the reviews? Do you plan on picking the game up? Do you not? Let me know in the comment section. Of course, I will be streaming the game myself as well, so look out for that. Make sure you hit the notification bell, subscribe, all of that good stuff. So that's gonna wrap it up for this one here. I really do appreciate it. Like I said, make sure you check out our content right here on screen. We have other RPG content and more going up all the time on PlayerEssence. Thank you again, guys, and we will see you for the next one. Peace.